Farming Connect are working in conjunction with Innovis, AHDB Signet and Techon in order to gather data on lambs included within the Welsh Sheep Genetics Programme, with the aim of looking at formulating an EBV for worm resistance. So this will then allow farmers to select sires based on their worm resistance levels, and will also offer the option of reducing anthelmintic resistance within sheep flocks in Wales.
So here at Techon in the lab, the first part of the process for us is having our contractor who goes out on farm and collects the samples from the lambs. On farm then, our contractor has a mobile kind of clamp unit that he takes around, linked to a true test kind of weighhead and an EID reader. And you'll see here we have sample labels. These sample labels have got QR codes on them, and the QR codes on those labels, they'll be, as soon as the contractor takes the sample from the lamb, he scans, he's got a barcode scanner which scans the QR code. That links to the EID of the lamb, so the identification in the ear of the lambs links to the EID via an EID reader, and that's how we link our sample and the sample code to the lamb's identification. As soon as the samples arrive here in the lab, they are weighed. We add water at a given ratio and mix into a slurry, and then the slurry then is poured through, each sample is poured through the sieves into the beakers here, and then transferred through the lab. Once we've got the sample through the filters into the beaker, we pour 12 mils into our falcon tubes. That gets then spun down in the centrifuge once, just in water, so that's just a watered sample to get into a pellet. We then get rid of the supernatant, the eggs are secure in the pellet, and then we add saline, suspend it again in saline, and do another spin in the centrifuge for 3 minutes. And in that spin, the eggs come to the top of our soft tubes, and the eggs come to the top. The two processes of spinning, the first in water and then in saline, will wash the eggs and float the eggs to the top of here. That's our process of cleaning the eggs from the bulk of the fecal material. These soft tubes are then clamped to extract the eggs off the top in the saline. Once we have the eggs and saline back in the tube, we then pipette to fill our cassettes. And the cassettes are designed, we fill up the wells of these cassettes, and basically the eggs will float in the saline up to the top of the wells, and because of the curve we have on the top of the bubbles, all the eggs concentrate to the centre and the top of our pins. So then on this side of the lab, after the cassettes have waited for a few minutes for the eggs to accumulate, these devices or micro eyes will take a picture. So we just run the software, we scan the QR code, again that important link between the animal and the sample in the lab, minimising how much human error can happen in terms of quality control in the lab. The micro eyes take the pictures of the top of the wells where the eggs have all accumulated. Once the images are in the cloud, our artificial intelligence will use its machine learning algorithms to identify the eggs first of all. For our process, we also have a technician who double checks what the artificial intelligence has said in terms of eggs, and then the software works out automatically what the EPG for each animal is, and that gives us our eggs per gram for each animal, and that is our simple measure of what the parasite burden in each animal is, and it's the differences between those eggs per gram between each animals which gets fed into the genetic indexes to try and find out those genetic lines which are able to fight parasites better and therefore have a lower eggs per gram in their samples.
Hi, I'm Will. I farm here at a hill farm near Hay-on-Wye. We have 1,500 Romneys, of which half are recorded. We've been recording for about 20 years now, but we joined the project earlier this year to increase the amount of data we can collect on our sheep and improve the recording and the quality of recording that we're doing. Also to record on a few novel traits that we haven't been recording on before. So hopefully we can improve the quality of stock going forwards for our customers, and to produce some sheep which are more sustainable and more in line with the type of sheep that the future is going to demand. About 20 years ago, and we started recording for worm resistance by using fecal egg counts. So we've got a lot of data behind us on that trait, but by recording for worm resistance in the project, we're allowing ourselves to increase the amount of data that we're collecting on the trait, as well as integrating some IGA data that we haven't been recording so far. So layering that in, I think, is going to really help our genetic improvement on this trait.
As part of the Welsh Sheep Genetics Programme, farmers are collecting data on the natural resistance of their sheep to parasites so that they can breed sheep more resistant to parasites and improve the health of their flocks. There's a lot of variation between sheep in their resistance to parasites. Some of that variation is heritable and will be passed on to the next generation. There's a lot of variation that isn't. But even that small proportion of heritable variation can make it possible to breed sheep more naturally resistant to parasites. We have a dual approach to doing that. We take fecal egg counts on sheep, which give us an idea of the number of worms that sheep is carrying when all the flock have been exposed to parasites, and also a measure of the antibodies the sheep has against parasites that it's been exposed to, which we measure with IgA levels from blood. And we have lots and lots of variation between individual sheep that can be exploited to identify those that genetically have greater resistance, breed from those to improve the health of the flock. This data can be used to calculate breeding values, and they'll help us identify the sheep that have the best genetic potential for resistance to parasites. The measures of breeding values for fecal egg count and IgA can be combined into an index called Parasite Plus, which gives us the best overall performers. This information then can be used when we're selecting rams for our own flock or buying rams, and they'll bring that genetic resistance to parasites into their progeny.